Hey Pex Agents, this is Mobius Y here with another video from Mass Effect Andromeda's multiplayer. So today's video is to make up for the fact that I missed out on Tuesday's vid, which is my normal schedule, so I do apologize for that. I had some serious technical difficulties, both recording and editing wise, so this is coming out quite late. But today's another two-parter. We're doing a character build guide, and we're doing a build on the Krogan Engineer. This is an uncommon character, which shares, again, similarities, but still has quite the differences from the Human Engineer. Now, the Human Engineer has a different active ability. Instead of Incinerate, which the Krogan Engineer has, the Human Engineer gets Cryo Beam, and instead of Rage, which is one of the Krogan Engineer's passives, the Human Engineer gets Support Systems. And the Human Engineer is touted as one of the best characters in the game in terms of its capabilities at nuking spawns, doing area damage, and supporting the team with debuffing bosses as well as applying certain crowd control. The Krogan Engineer doesn't really do the support aspect as well, but I think it does really good single target damage and can still do quite a good amount of area damage against tightly packed groups of enemies especially. So what I was going for with this build was I was going for as much area damage and crowd control as possible, as well as maximizing survivability as best as I could. So hence the skill picks here. Maxing out Overload and Incinerate and Offensive Tech to increase the offensive capabilities of my powers as best as possible, and maxing out Rage to increase the survivability of the character as much as possible. So let's take a look at each and every single one of the skills. As you're leveling this character up, you can max out whichever skills you want first. I believe I started off with Incinerate, and then I was leveling the character. I went into Rage and started maxing that out, and then I did Overload third, and lastly Offensive Tech as I got the character up to maximum level. So starting off, taking a look at Overload. Overload has a base recharge time of 12 seconds, and it has a shield and synthetic damage bonus. So it'll do bonus damage to sub-bosses such as Ket Destined and Outlaw, I want to say Pariahs. That's correct, Pariahs. It'll do bonus damage to their shields, making it easier to strip them. And it does even more bonus damage against synthetic enemies. So things like Remnant and even Hydras, Outlaw Hydra bosses, it will do bonus damage to those, which is really nice. And when you charge it up, you can chain it to hit 3 targets. The problem with this is that, unlike in Mass Effect 3, only the target that you hit by casting the power will have a combo set off, provided that they are primed with it. So, whereas in Mass Effect 3, you could actually have 3 combos go off with a single triple chain overload, you will only have the one combo go off in Andromeda. So make sure that, as much as possible, your overload target is what is primed for a detonation. And that's most likely going to be fire explosions, since Incinerate's going to be your go-to primer power. Rank 2, you get a recharge speed reduction, 10%, not a huge amount, so it'll take off about a second. Rank 3, you get 25% to all damage. At rank 4, I used to go with the plus 35% all damage, but I really started to use the plus 25% recharge speed at the rank 4 upgrade, just to keep its recharge speed as low as possible, as well as try to keep it on par with Incinerate's recharge speed as much as possible. Incinerate's base recharge speed is also 12 seconds, but I think I'm pretty sure the value that it gets at rank 2, the recharge speed is different. As you can see, it's 15% instead of 10%. So in order to keep a similar recharge speed, in fact slightly shorter than Incinerate, I went with this at first. Rank 5, I used to go with the charged overload to have it chained to a 4th target when charged, but I found that the shield stripping capabilities of the plus 60% damage versus shields is much handier. This makes it much more easier to strip the shields on Ket Destined, Ket Anointed, Outlaw Pariahs, Sharpshooters, what are they called? Remnant Observers. That's what I was looking for. Just much easier to strip shields and be able to hit them with an Incinerate and prime them for fire explosions that much more quickly. Really nice having the extra damage versus shields, in my opinion. And at rank 6, I went with the maximum charge. This is what I've always stuck with on this particular character. When charged, it chains to an additional target, so you do get a 4th target that will have the overload chained to, and it does plus 30% to all damage. I feel that's way more worth it than the rank 5 charged overload pick. Having it chained to 5 targets was sometimes kind of nice. I would get the odd kill out of nowhere just by zapping somebody with an overload, and then it would chain to 5 people that I couldn't even see, and one of them would be low health enough where they'd magically die. But the rank 6 bonus target when charging overload is much better because you get an additional damage boost as well. You don't get that at rank 5, so that's why I went with that. I feel it's much more useful than the plus 60% damage versus shields and plus 15% damage versus synthetics. This would make it so that the shield stripping capabilities are extremely good, even better than they are already. But the damage bonus against the synthetics isn't anything too spectacular. I didn't really feel it was worth it. Being able to have overload jump and hit a 4th target as opposed to just 3 was really nice. Assault turret, this was the skill that I had to sacrifice in order to maximize everything else, but this is still a useful skill. It will still do some damage, even finish off some really weakened enemies for you, as well as draw away a little bit of aggro for you. So don't forget to throw it down now and then. You'll see in the gameplay that I often don't have it down. I have to remind myself to actually put it down in order to get the full use out of it. So do throw it. It will even stagger smaller enemies, especially mooks like Outlaw Raiders and Ket Chosen. If they're right in front of you, you can throw it in their face and it'll cause a small stagger, provided it's on cooldown. So Incinerate, this is the go-to primer power, but you can make it a detonator by taking it all the way to rank 6. At rank 2, you get the plus 15% recharge speed, so it will recharge a little bit faster than Overload. However, you do have to consider that Overload will take slightly longer to cast off when you're charging it, because it takes about a second and a half in order to charge it up before you fire it off and have it hit multiple people. So this has burning damage over time when you hit enemies with it, and it also has an armor damage bonus of 60%. So where Overload is kind of your anti-shield power, Incinerate's your anti-armor power, and it does a really good job of it. It's also a really good primer for fire explosions, which again do bonus damage against armor. Rank 3, you get a plus 35% all damage bonus. This includes the initial hit of Incinerate as well as the burning damage over time. At rank 4, I went with Radius. I like this way more than the additional burning damage. The extra damage over time, it would give you an additional 3 seconds of burning damage. So the enemies that are hit with Incinerate would take more tick damage over a longer period of time. But I like it when the initial hit of the Incinerate projectile can hit multiple targets on its own. This is definitely the pick if you go with the rank 6 detonator option. You would definitely want to choose the Radius option so that you do not have your Incinerate simply hit a single target and that's it. You want to try and have it hit as many people as possible. Rank 5, there's the Impact option, which is plus 60% initial damage. I don't really think that's worth it compared to the plus 65% damage versus armor. As I said, this is your anti-armor power. So taking down Ket Fiends and Outlaw Hydras, really important. Being able to take down Berserkers fairly well as well. When they get hit with the Incinerate, they will take quite a bit of damage, and then when you set off a fire explosion with an Overload, again, it does quite a bit of damage and can take off quite a fair chunk of their massive hit pool. And at rank 6, I personally like the double Incinerate, kind of sticking with the theme of widespread area damage as much as possible. Having 2 projectiles go out and hit individual targets, this just gives you the opportunity to have more potential overload targets in order to set off a fire explosion, especially those that are de-shielded. Sometimes you'll even get the double Incinerate to hit the same person, and you basically wind up doing double the damage because it's 2 projectiles hitting the same person. The detonator option is definitely a choice because Overload will prime them when you zap them. So they will be primed for tech bursts for a brief period of time. So you could use Incinerate not only to prime for fire explosions against enemies with armor, but you could also use it to detonate tech bursts after hitting them with an Overload first. So that just gives you a really good level of versatility. I really like the double Incinerate, though. It's extremely good for nuking spawns. 2 Incinerate projectiles that have a damage radius of 2 meters. It does a lot of damage to mooks and sub-bosses, especially when they're tightly packed together. Offensive tech, this is one of the passive trees. At rank 1, you get plus 10% power damage. Rank 2, you get additional weapon and melee damage. At rank 3, you get plus 15% power damage again. You also get plus 20% tech construct damage, so your assault turret will be a little bit more powerful. At rank 4, I like the combo detonation. plus 50% all combo damage and plus 30% all combo radiuses. Combos, is particularly fire combos, are largely your main source of damage. It's kind of your go-to 1-2 punch. You incinerate things, and hopefully they're de-shielded by then, and then you hit them with an overload. Or you just shoot them a few times with your weapon to de-shield any enemies that do have shields, then hit them with an incinerate, and then cast a chain overload on somebody. And it does quite a lot of damage to tight groups of enemies. Rank 5, largely personal preference. I like the plus 40% power damage bonus to armor because all of the bosses in the game, the Outlaw Hydra, the Ket Fiend, and the Remnant Destroyer have armor, and they have a lot of hit points in that category, and it's just a lot easier to take them down much more quickly. You do have to de-shield a Destroyer first, but it's actually pretty easy to do with the weapon choice that I have, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Rank 6, I went with the Elemental Defense debuff. Inflicting a status effect on enemies causes them to take more damage from heat, cold, and electricity. So enemies that are shocked by your overload or burning from your incinerate will take 35% more damage from heat, cold, and electricity. So if you hit somebody with an incinerate, your overload, if you hit a de-shielded enemy with incinerate and they are burning, your overload will deal 35% more damage, and vice versa. If they are zapped by your overload and they're stunned, your incinerate will do 35% more damage when you hit them with it. This is way better than the weapon mass reduction. This gives you better efficiencies towards using your weapon, better weight capacity, better weapon accuracy, better weapon stability, and more melee damage, which is really uncalled for. So those were my picks in offensive tech. Rage, this is the passive kind of survivability sort of thing. This gives you a lot of base increases to your health and shields. In fact, it gives you a total of, where the heck is it? You get plus 60% max health and plus 60% max shields, as you can see in the bottom right there, with the picks that I have. So the Krogan passive tree has them enter a blood rage when you get 3 kills within a short radius. The radius is a base amount of 10 meters, but with one of the picks later on, further down the tech tree, it increases the radius to 15 meters. So if you're close up on a few enemies, you can kill them fairly quickly with your powers and your weapon and a combination of your melee. Get 3 kills really quick, as quickly as possible, and then try to continue getting some close range kills. Rage only lasts for 15 seconds. But it's a really good tool for helping with your survivability, because you get some damage resistance and you get some health regeneration while Rage is active. You also get additional bonuses like melee bonuses and whatnot, which is really nice. Reduced regeneration delay, again, helps with your survivability. So you want to try and keep Rage up as much as possible. At the very beginning of a wave, this is why it's important to try and find a spawn full of mooks and just go in there and nuke them with an Incinerate Overload combo, and then try and finish off anybody else. Get that Rage going early on so that you have some passive health regen. Rank 2 is a strength bonus. You get plus 15% melee damage and plus 25% weapon weight capacity. That's really nice for carrying 2 heavy guns on this character. And in fact, I do that. We'll see that a little bit further down when we go into the equipment. At rank 3, it's plus 20% max health and plus 20% max shields at all times, which is really nice. Rank 4 is another resilience upgrade, plus 20% max health, plus 20% max shields. You also get plus 15 damage resistance while enraged. That's not huge, but every little bit helps, you know. It's not really necessary to pick this melee upgrade, plus 25% melee damage and an additional plus 25% melee bonus when enraged. Not really as effective as the additional health and shields. The survivability is really nice. Rank 5, you get a damage resistance buff for 2 seconds, and it's 50 points of damage resistance for performing a kill that would trigger or refresh Rage. So if Rage is active, or if you set Rage off and you get a kill on an enemy within 15 meters, you get 50 points of damage resistance for 2 seconds. So again, increasing your survivability quite nicely. Definitely preferable over martial arts, which increases the effectiveness of your melees. And then the rank 6 upgrade, I went with Inspirational. While enraged, other nearby players receive damage resistance. This does not stack with Rage bonuses, so allies that are close to you will get 30 points of damage resistance. Again, it's not huge, but every little bit helps. And the buff radius is 15 meters. So that is the same radius that you will be required to get kills in order to refresh rage, because the other bonus from this option is at the very bottom there, plus 50% kill radius. So if you look in the general stats, the kill radius totals 15 meters. So 50% of 10 meters is 15 meters. So any allies within that 15-meter radius are given 30 points of extra damage resistance, and any enemies that you kill within those 15 meters will refresh rage, or possibly trigger it if you get 3 kills in quick succession. This also gives you plus 20% max health and max shields again, so basically maximizing your survivability. And all these combine really nicely with the veteran bonus upgrades. You get plus 39% power and combo damage bonuses, and plus 39% melee damage bonus, which are really handy for finishing things off and just dealing more damage to stuff. This particular setup actually does really high single target damage with its powers set up the way they are and used in proper conjunction. As I said, your go-to combination is incinerating things to set them on fire, and then overloading to set off at least 1 fire explosion, but also having it chained to 3 additional targets and dealing more widespread area damage. So in order to continue with the theme of area damage and crowd control, the weapons I went with for quite some time, and also in the gameplay, was the Venom shotgun and the Falcon assault rifle. Both of these guns shoot a projectile that does a small amount of area damage and causes staggering on smaller enemies. Not necessarily on bosses, but on things like Outlaw Raiders or even Sharpshooters and Ket Destined and even de-shielded Ket Anointed and Remnant Assemblers. They will be staggered when you shoot them repeatedly with these guns. And the Venom actually does really good damage, especially with the charged shot. So the Venom, when you charge it up and shoot it, and it hits a surface or it hits an enemy, it releases smaller projectiles that spread out and deal even more damage around the impact point, as well as staggering any enemies that are hit by that as well. Any small enemies that are hit by that as well. The mods on both of them are simple barrel and this was a shotgun spare clip for the Venom, so just carrying lots of ammo on that. And for the Falcon, again, it's barrel and the assault rifle magazine upgrade to give it a really respectable magazine. So the Venom is actually really capable of doing lots of damage to things like Remnant Destroyers when they open up their chest to shoot their big super cannon at you and try and one-hit kill you. It's actually pretty handy to get 2 or even just 1 charge shot off right into the chest area, because sometimes those little bomblets will fragment off and explode inside that chest area, along with the initial shot that you fire into. So they all do bonus damage because they all hit the weak point of the destroyer. It doesn't happen every time, but you notice when it does, because it takes a sizable chunk off of the destroyer's health, either their shields or their armor. The Falcon is kind of just a backup weapon, and it's a better choice if the Venom is just too quirky and clunky at longer ranges for you. I still have difficulty with the Venom myself, even trying to figure it out. You don't see me use the Falcon in the gameplay, but it's a nice option to have as a kind of a backup, especially if you find yourself running out of ammo with the Venom a lot. For equipment, I went with the engineering kit so that my powers did more damage when they hit. Increases tech damage dealt by tech powers by 30%. This should also increase the damage of your assault turret, making it more powerful as well. Again, there's only 1 point into it, so every little bit of damage bonus to the assault turret does help it out a little bit. But this, again, increases your single target damage when you use your combo on a single enemy. It will really hurt them. Simply put, it does a lot of damage. For boosters, Tech Power Amp 2 is what I used. I definitely recommend using a Tech Power Amp or possibly a power efficiency mod to reduce your cooldown times of all your powers. The Tech Power Amp is really good to, again, increase your single target damage when you use your Incinerate Overload combo. It makes whatever you use it on, even if it's a sub-boss, but especially a Mook, whatever you use your combo on will die with all these power bonuses. But, I mean, it also does bonus damage to any other enemies that are hit with the Chained Overload, as well as hit within the radius of one of the Incinerate projectiles. And then for the second booster, I highly recommend Disruptor Ammo. It helps to de-shield enemies, which is kind of the biggest issue with this particular character build, because enemies with shields cannot be set on fire. Well, they can be hit with Incinerate, but they will not be suffering the burning damage. They will not be set on fire. Therefore, you will not be able to set off a fire combo by casting Overload on them right away. So the Disruptor ammo really helps with de-shielding enemies in order to have them basically ready to have a fire combo set up on them. And that's generally it for this build review. Like I said, it kind of focuses on very high single target damage, but still with a lot of tight area damage over a very small confined space, and a fair level of crowd control. Incinerate will stagger people and also cause them to panic because they're on fire. Smaller enemies will panic because they're on fire. Overload will cause them to be stunned because they just got zapped by a jolt of electricity. The Venom causes staggers. The Falcon causes staggers. The Assault Turret will stagger somebody if you throw it right in their face. It's actually a very effective it's very effective combination. And again, the damage that you deal to the target that you're casting your powers at will also be quite good, since fire combos, especially against armored enemies, fire combos do bonus damage against armor. And any enemies that are nearby will also be getting struck by the Incinerate projectiles, as well as the chained overloads and the explosion from the fire combo. So pretty effective. Let me know in the comments below if you've tried this build yourself, what you like about it, what you don't like about it, and if you do things different, just what works for you. Thanks very much for watching. This has been Mobius Y. For part 2 of this character build guide, check the link in the description below for gameplay on gold difficulty. I will see you on the battlefield or in my next video. Good luck, Apex agents.